everyone, I'm going to show you how to create a shopping list app where you can enter different items. Hit the plus button and they will appear on the list. So we're going to be looking at table views, we're going to create a new class, we're going to use arrays, and I'll break this video up into parts. Thanks for watching. Start by creating a new Xcode project. The platform is going to be iOS. It's going to be an app. This is going to be a shopping list app. I'm going to make this in storyboard. All right, we're going to start this app in the main.storyboard. If you don't see main.storyboard in your navigation pane, you might have chosen the user interface Swift UI, so you just want to go back, create it again with the storyboard user interface. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this phone screen in my main.storyboard. I'm going to go up to the top where it says Editor. I'm going to scroll down to Embed In, and I'm going to embed in a navigation controller. Now that navigation controller will control all the views. It will stack all the views on top of it. And it gives us a nice little bar at the top where we can put in bar button items and a title, anything else. And that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to go into our object library. We're going to grab a bar button item. And I'm going to drag it up to the right-hand side of this bar. I have my bar button item highlighted, and I am in my attributes inspector. And I'm going to go down to system item, and I'm going to change it from custom to add. So we're going to get a little plus sign, so we can add different items from our shopping list on here. Next up, I'm going to go into our object library again. And I am going to grab a text field. This I'm going to drag and put it right in the middle of that bar. My text field is highlighted, and I'm going to go over to my attributes inspector. I'm going to scroll down to where it says placeholder, and I'm just going to say enter new item, so the user knows what to put inside of there. Next thing I'm going to get from our object library is a table view. And I am going to constrain our table view to all four sides. So I'm going to go down to the constraints, which is this button right down here. And I'm going to go 0, 0, 0, 0. You'll notice when we're entering these zeros, these lines become like a darker red. And we can say add 4 constraints, and that will pin this table view to all four sides of the screen. So if a user has a different size phone screen, it will still cover the whole phone screen. I'm going to go back to our object library, and I'm going to grab a table view cell. I'm going to drag that into our table view. Now that the table view cell is highlighted, I am going to go over to my attributes inspector, and I'm going to go down to where it says identifier. I'm just going to call this cell ID. So I can refer to this cell with the name or the identifier, cell ID. Next up, we're going to make some connections. So I'm going to open up another editor pane. I'm going to click on my viewcontroller.swift file. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here at the top. And let me close some of this so I have a little bit more room. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to control click and drag from my table view to somewhere above view did load. I'm going to call this shopping table view. Next up, I'm going to grab the bar button item. I'm going to do a control click and drag from this plus sign down below view did load. And I'm going to call this add button pressed. Change it from type any to type UI bar button item, and I'm going to. Next up, I'm going to do a control click and drag from the UI text field over to somewhere above view did load. Again, this is going to be an outlet. I'll call this new item text field. So we connected our table view, we connected our text field, and we connected our add button. Our add button came below view did load. The other two are outlets, so they come above view did load. Next up, we're going to add our delegate and our data source. So up top here, where it says class, view controller, UI view controller, we're going to make the view controller our UI table view delegate, comma, and UI table view data source. So the table view delegate and data source will be the view controller for us. And I'm going to close this other editor pane just so we have a little bit more room now that we've made our connections. And we are getting an error, but that is all right. Let's click on this error and see what this error says. This error says type view controller does not conform to protocol UI table view data source. So there's certain protocol we need, certain methods that we need to include in our code if we are going to have our view controller be our UI table view data source. So it asks us, do you want to add the protocol stubs, these stubs for the methods that we're going to use? And I say, yes, I do want that to happen, so I'm going to say fix. And so it's going to create these two methods. The first one is number of rows in section. So this is going to return an int, and that int that we return is the number of rows that we'll have in our table view. The other function is going to be cell for row at. So this is going to create a cell for our UI table view. It's going to return that cell. So let me highlight these, and I'm going to do Command X. And I'm going to paste them down. I'm going to paste them right below view did load. For our first one, I'm just going to say return the number 3. So we're going to return an int, and that's going to be the number of rows in section. So for us right now, this is going to return 3 rows. And then we have to create a cell, and we need to return that cell. So I'm going to say let cell equal table view dot DQ reusable cell with identifier 4. So this DQ reusable cell means that we're going to reuse this cell over and over again. Our identifier, which we created already when we added our cell identifier, we called it cell ID. So capital C-E-L-L, capital I, capital D. And this is going to be for index path. Cell.textLabel cell.textLabel.text is going to be equal to my first table view. Now that we created a cell, we're going to need to return that cell. Inside of view to load, we need to say the name of our table view, which I think is shopping table view. Dot delegate is equal to self, and we're going to say shopping dot data source is equal to self. And then we can press play to test it out. And here we have returned our 3 rows that we created. And each of the rows inside of that cell, the text label says my first table view, because that's what we told it to say inside of the code.